Today's lesson is Fighting the Fever, Keeping Deadly Dengue at Bay. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to be talking about a disease called dengue fever. It appears in the news every once in a while. You hear about cases, usually down south, of people with dengue fever, and people get scared. They don't want it to spread around. So we're going to try to talk about this particular disease in today's lesson, and we're going to talk about ways to keep it at bay, to stop it from becoming a big problem.
Because, of course, if it does become a big problem, a lot of people will get sick, and it's especially dangerous for people whose health is affected by other things, people who are very old, very young, people fighting other diseases. But it's just generally a disease you wouldn't really want to get. And the good thing about it, I guess, I mean, in some ways it's a good thing, is that there are active steps that we can take, both as people and as communities, to try to get rid of dengue fever. The other good thing is that since it's spread by mosquitoes, if we're getting rid of the things that spread dengue, we're also getting rid of the risk of malaria, another disease that is carried and spread through mosquitoes. So let's find all about how to keep deadly dengue at bay, because we don't want dengue fever. Fighting the fever, keeping deadly dengue at bay. Your head is pounding, your body feels like it's on fire, and you ache all over. If you're lucky, it might be just a case of the flu. But if you live in an area where mosquitoes are a common pest, you may be suffering from something far more serious, dengue fever.
大家好，第一部分我们来看标题中的片语 keep 或是 hold somebody 或是 something at bay， 意思是阻止点点点或是遏制点点点。例如 Locking your bike after parking can keep thieves at bay. 在你停放自行车后上锁可以防止小偷。或者 This medicine will help hold your fever at bay. 这种药将有助于遏制发烧。
Okay, let's talk about the first part of our lesson. Again, the title is all about dengue fever, and we want to keep dengue fever at bay. If you keep something at bay, you prevent it from becoming a problem, you control it. So, unfortunately, I should say, health officials in various countries failed at keeping COVID-19 at bay when it first broke out. It ended up spreading all over the world, so it was not kept at bay. But we don't want the same thing to happen with dengue fever. We want to keep it at bay. We want to keep it from getting to be a problem. And if something's deadly, well, it can cause death. It can be terrible, and people can die from this disease.
All right, so let's find out what it would be like to get dengue fever, and I'll give you an early hint. It's not nice. Your head is pounding. Your body feels like it's on fire, and you ache all over. If you're lucky, it might be just a case of the flu. All right, but if we're unlucky, we'll find out about that after. But yes, this is basically a description that sounds like you're very sick. Your head is pounding, so that means you can probably feel your pulse or your heartbeat in your head. And you would also, I assume, have a headache. If something is pounding, it's kind of beating with a lot of force. If someone is pounding on your door, they're not just knocking on your door, they're hitting it with their fist or something like that. Open up, this is really important. It's the police or something like that. They're not being polite. And if your head is pounding, I mean, if you sit still, you can probably feel your heart beating, your pulse. But if your head is pounding, it really hurts. You can really notice it. It would be very distracting. It would be hard to fall asleep, for example, with a pounding head. And so your body doesn't feel good either. It feels like it's on fire. You feel very hot, and you ache all over, both being very hot and having a lot of aches. To me, at least, that feels like I have a fever. I have a high temperature. My temperature is above 38 degrees Celsius. I'm sick, in other words. If you're lucky, it says it might be just a case of the flu or COVID-19 or something like that. It could be something viral, something that you caught just from, taking the MRT or whatever, and it'll go away in a day or two if you stay home and drink water and take care of yourself. If you're not lucky, it could be something much more serious, something like dengue.
Yeah, this does not sound like a lucky situation to have a head pounding and you feel feel like you're on fire and you ache all over, but that's lucky compared to something else you might have. But if you live in an area where mosquitoes are a common pest, you may be suffering from something far more serious, dengue fever. So you might live in an area where mosquitoes are a common pest. Mosquitoes are quite common here in Taiwan. I often have to try to kill them when they keep buzzing around my ears at night. I think most of us have had that experience before. And mosquitoes are a common pest in different parts of the world. A pest is something that causes problems. You could describe a person as a pest. Oh, I'm so sick of David. He's such a pest. He won't stop bothering me. But in this particular case, we're talking about an animal that can be quite troublesome, especially a mosquito. It could be an animal as well. I suppose rats would be considered pests. But in this particular case, we're talking about mosquitoes, and they're quite common. They're all over the world, especially in warmer parts of the world.
Absolutely. Pests on farms can kill crops. Pests in forests can kill trees. And, of course, pests in our homes, be they rats, cockroaches, ants, or mosquitoes, can bring, suffering and sort of a loss of quality of life to you, or even economic losses, like they have pests on farms. That's why, of course, you're not allowed to bring fresh fruit and things like that from other countries into Taiwan. We want to avoid these pests that may be common in some places, but we don't want them to become common here because then they're hard to get rid of. So let's find out all about dengue fever and hopefully how to get rid of those mosquitoes that are pests in the next part of our article. Dengue fever is a potentially deadly viral infection that is common in Africa, Asia, and parts of South America, particularly in areas of high humidity where there is lots of stagnant water. The disease is transmitted by mosquitoes, which thrive in such conditions. Dengue symptoms, such as a fever, headaches, and muscle pains, typically start 4 to 6 days after a bite from a dengue-carrying mosquito, with mild cases looking similar to the flu and lasting for up to 10 days. However, more serious cases can result in bleeding from the nose and gums, as well as dangerously low blood pressure, which can be fatal if left untreated.
第二部分来看到形容词 stagnant， 它的意思是水或是空气不流动的，也可以是停滞不前的。例如 The stagnant pond is contaminated and has a terrible odor. 那池死水已经被污染并散发着难闻的气味。或是 The country's stagnant economy has driven off many potential investors. 该国停滞的经济景气吓退了许多潜在投资人。接下来是动词 transmit， 指的是传染、传播疾病或是传送。我们可以说 The radio beacon transmits a signal into space. 无线电信标把一道讯号传到太空中。又或者说 The tracking collar transmitted the location of the lion within the park. 追踪项圈传送这只狮子在园区里的位置。接着看到 thrive 这个动词，表示茁壮成长、兴旺或是繁荣的意思。例如 Months of rain helped the plants thrive during the summer. 几个月的雨帮助植物在夏季期间茂盛生长。或者 Online stores are thriving as more people are shopping from home. 由于更多人在家购物，线上商店正蓬勃发展。另外介绍同义词 flourish, F-L-O-U-R-I-S-H, flourish. 它指的是茂盛、繁荣或是兴旺。举例来说 Flowers are flourishing in Gordon's garden because he takes good care of them. Gordon 花园里的花蓬勃成长，因为他有好好照顾它们。或者 New businesses in the food and service industries usually flourish due to consumer curiosity. 由于消费者的好奇心，食品和服务等新产业通常会蓬勃发展。再来介绍 mild， 它是形容词，意思是轻微的或是温和的。例如 Fiona had a mild headache this morning, but she feels better now. Fiona 今天早上有轻微的头痛，但现在感觉好多了。或是My doctor gave me a very mild drug, so I'm not worried about possible side effects. 我的医生给了我一种非常温和的药物，所以我不担心可能的副作用。下一个我们看到 fatal 这个形容词，指的是致命的或是毁灭性的。例如 Blood clots in the brain can be fatal if they're not treated immediately. 脑部的血块若未立即处理可能会致命。也可以说 Police were called to the scene of the fatal accident. 警察接获通报，抵达这起致命的事故现场。
Okay, it's time for us to discuss the second part of our article for today. What exactly is dengue fever and why is it such a problem? Well, dengue fever is a potentially deadly viral infection that is common in Africa, Asia, and parts of South America, particularly or especially in areas of high humidity, where there is lots of stagnant water. So we're describing dengue fever as a potentially deadly viral infection. If it's potentially deadly, it might cause death if you get this problem. You'll probably survive if you get treated okay, but you're still going to be in a lot of pain. You're going to suffer a lot, but you might die if you're not careful. And it's a viral infection. If something's viral, that means it has to do with viruses. It also means something could be quite widespread, like that new video on TikTok went viral. Everybody in the world has seen it now.
Yeah, of course, COVID-19 was a viral infection too, and they are very tricky, very hard to kill, and very easy to infect and make lots of people sick. So this is common in Africa, Asia, and parts of South America, warm parts of the world, and as we learn, particularly or especially, as Roger said, in areas of high humidity, where there's a lot of humid air, a lot of rain. Of course, rainforests and jungles are commonly found in Africa, Asia, South America. You won't find dengue fever in, northern Canada or the South Pole or southern Argentina, but in a lot of the warmer, wetter parts of the world, it's very easy to find it. So there's humidity, there's rain, and where there's rain, there is stagnant water, or water that doesn't move, water in ponds possibly, but also water in puddles, water that gets caught in rain barrels or old tires or the roofs of buildings, places like that. Anywhere you can kind of get puddles of water that just sort of sit there and start to grow viruses and bacterias, and bugs plant their eggs in this type of water. So not ocean water, not river water, not moving water, but stagnant water, water that is still and just sits there and provides a perfect nursery for a lot of different things to grow. And most of the things that grow in stagnant water are not nice or not healthy. The disease is transmitted by mosquitoes, which of course lay their eggs in stagnant water. So it's transmitted or carried and passed around by mosquitoes, which thrive in such conditions. They do very, very well in places of high humidity with lots of stagnant water. The disease, as I said, is transmitted or spread, passed around by mosquitoes, and these mosquitoes and their little eggs, their little larvae, I guess, thrive in such conditions. If an animal thrives, or if people thrive, they do really, really well, probably because of the environmental or the situation that surrounds them. If you go to a certain place and your life becomes better and you're a happier, healthier, more successful person, your friends might say, hey, you really thrived since you moved to a smaller town. The big city was stressful to you. You couldn't find work. Now you're in a smaller town. It's healthier. It's quieter. You're a happier person. You're doing well. In the same way, animals can thrive. They'll probably thrive in the area of the world where they were first found, but you might transport them to another part of the world where they will also do very well or thrive.
Right, so if you have these conditions, high humidity and stagnant water, then those mosquitoes will thrive and spread diseases. Now, here in the next paragraph it says, dengue symptoms such as a fever, headaches, and muscle pains typically start 4 to 6 days after a bite from a dengue-carrying mosquito, with mild cases looking similar to the flu and lasting for up to 10 days. So we're talking about the symptoms or the signs of this disease. Of course, if you want to figure out what your disease is, you need to figure out what the symptoms are. What are the indications? What's happening with your body? What are the things that are unusual about your body that are happening? And so therefore you can figure out what the symptoms are. And if you want to figure out if you've got dengue fever, well, you might have these symptoms. They include having a fever where things are hot in your forehead. You might have headaches, that pounding in your head again. You might have muscle pains. Even though you weren't exercising, you're still feeling pain in your muscles. Well, these symptoms usually or typically start 4 to 6 days after a bite from a mosquito which is carrying the dengue virus. Okay, so if you're unfortunate enough to have been bitten by a mosquito that is carrying this virus, you might develop symptoms. And if you have a mild case, well, it just might seem like the flu and it will last up to 10 days. You'll be okay after that. If something's mild, it's not severe. Like there was an earthquake yesterday, but it was very mild. Very few people felt it.
So a minor case, not a very strong case. It will still make you pretty sick. It'll feel like you have the flu and could last up to 10 days, which for me would be an especially long bout of the flu. But yeah, you wouldn't feel that bad, and you certainly wouldn't necessarily feel like you should go to the hospital. However, and here's the big but, here's the big however, more serious cases, so a more severe case or a more serious case of dengue fever is much worse. More serious cases can result in bleeding from the nose and gums. All right, that is definitely a sign that you are really sick. As well as dangerously low blood pressure, which can be fatal if left untreated. So this is the type of thing that could see you not only going to the hospital, but staying in the hospital. Blood coming from your nose, blood coming from your gums. Those are the pink things above your teeth. Now, if you brush your teeth, you might get blood coming from your gums occasionally, especially if you don't floss, or when you floss, you might when you go to the dentist. But if your gums just start bleeding on their own, that's definitely a sign that something is wrong in your body. And then you might also feel very tired and lightheaded. This could be because of the dangerously low blood pressure you're experiencing. So if you stand up, you feel like you'll faint. When you take your blood pressure, instead of a healthy 130/70, it might be, 90/40 or something like that. Your heart is not pumping very efficiently, and your blood is not carrying oxygen around your body efficiently, leaving you feeling weak and lightheaded. And these things can kill you. They can be fatal if left untreated. Something fatal is like something deadly. It could lead to you dying. It won't just make you sick or hurt you. It could possibly kill you if left untreated. If you don't go to a hospital, if you don't get the medicine and the support from the hospital that you need. And I would also say if you're very old or very young or sick with something else, these types of things can combine to make it even more serious. So that is definitely a case of dengue fever that you would want professional help with at a hospital.
Right. So again, these are what might happen in serious cases of dengue fever. These are the symptoms. And if you have those symptoms and you don't treat those symptoms, if you don't treat those cases, it could be fatal. You could die. So watch out for the symptoms and please take care of yourself and see your doctor if this happens to you. Okay, well, let's move on now to the third and final part of our lesson for today. We will listen first.
What's more, even if you've had dengue fever before and recovered, you still aren't completely safe. That's because there are actually 4 different types of dengue virus, meaning that even if you have immunity to one type, you can still catch the disease from the other 3.
最后第3部分看到名词 immunity 有免疫力或是免除、免疫的意思。例如 After you recover from a cold, you have immunity to that particular virus. 在你感冒康复后，你就会对该特定病毒产生免疫力。再看一个例子 Maintaining a balanced diet can improve your immunity and prevent diseases. 保持饮食均衡可以提高免疫力和预防疾病。
Okay, it says here, what's more, or in addition, also. You could also say furthermore. Even if you've had dengue fever before and recovered, you still aren't completely safe. A lot of people think that if you've had a certain disease before, then you will be immune from getting that disease in the future, or if you get that disease again in the future, it won't be so bad because your body has built up defenses against that disease. But that's not the case with dengue fever, is it?
No, it isn't, because because there are actually 4 different types of dengue virus, meaning that even if you have immunity to one type, you can still catch the disease from the other 3. So I guess you could look forward to getting dengue 3 times in your life before you start to feel comfortable. But that's not something anyone wants to do. So there are actually 4 different types of dengue virus. Some of them would have different symptoms. Some of them might potentially be more dangerous. There are also different types of mosquitoes out there. Certain mosquitoes carry certain diseases, others don't, so it might have something to do with that. But yes, as Roger said, if you get it once, you won't have an immunity in the future. There are 4 types of the disease, meaning that even if you have immunity to one, you can still catch one of the other 3. Immunity basically meaning it doesn't affect you. You kind of have a superpower. When we were getting COVID vaccines, that wasn't going to give us an immunity to the virus, but it will certainly make it less likely that the virus will make you very sick. But other diseases like the chicken pox, which a lot of kids get when they're 4 or 5 years old, if you get that at a young age, you will never get that ever again. Your body has an immunity to that, like this sort of superpower created by the antibodies in your body. But with the dengue, yeah, there's 4 types, so you'll never really be guaranteed of having an immunity to all of them unless you get them, I guess, all in your lifetime.
Right, so again, we got the danger of different forms of dengue fever. If you get one form, you could still get the other 3, and that might be a big problem, so please be careful. Okay, we're at the end of our discussion for today. Hanny would like to talk to you now.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第2部分提到登革热这种疾病是经由蚊子传播，那文中是用 transmit 这个动词来表达传染传播，那它也有传送的意思。我们来学习它的字首字根。好，看到 MIT 或是 MISS 这一类字根有送出投射的意思，像 missile飞弹导弹这个字其实就不难看出它的字根带有投射的语义了。那么在 transmit 这个字当中，它的字首 TRANS 表示 across 有跨越啊横越的意思，那么字根 MIT 它表示 send 送出，那合在一起呢 transmit 它就有传送传达的意思了。我们顺便补充几个有这类字根的单字。第一个是 emit，它的字首 E 表示向外，由内向外，那么 MIT 表示送出投射，合在一起 emit 它就有发出发射或是散发的意思。第二个补充的是 omit， 它的字首 O 是源自于 OB， 那只是因为 B 碰到 M 被同化而省略了，那 O 在这边是做强调用。MIT mit 则是有 send 送出或者是 let go 放行释放的意思，把东西放掉应该可以联想到 omit 它有遗漏省略或删除的意思。第三个补充的是 dismiss， 它的字首 DIS 表示离开远离，那么字根 miss 同样有 send 或是 let go 的意思，那如果是把人送走叫人离开，应该可以联想到 dismiss 它有解雇解散的意思了。课文第3部分提到，即使你以前得过登革热，而且已经康复，你仍然不是100%安全。课文还有提到说，有4种不同类型的登革热病毒，这意味着即使你对一种类型的病毒具有免疫力，你仍然可能因为其他3种类型的病毒而染病。好，那我们这个段落它出现了2次。Even if 用来表达即使怎么样怎么样，我们这边就来比较一下 even if 和 even though 的用法。首先 even if 表示即使就算，那它是 if 的强调说法，用来引导条件或假设的情况，强调无论情况是否成立都不影响结果。例如 You should wear sunscreen even if it's cloudy outside， 即使外面是多云的天气，你还是得擦防晒。好，再看到 even though 它表示即使虽然尽管，那它是 although 或者是 though 的强调说法，用来引导确定的状况或是已发生的事实，强调虽然某个情况成立，但还是有某种结果。例如 The outdoor concert went pretty well even though it rained， 虽然下雨，那场户外音乐会还是进行得很顺利。好，那以上今天重点整理，我们来回顾几个单字吧。
Deadly. This snake's bite can be deadly if not treated quickly. Pest. Ants, beetles, and other pests have caused significant damage to the garden recently. Viral. Scientists are working hard to ensure the world does not see another viral pandemic. Transmit. During flu season, people were advised to wear masks to reduce the risk of transmitting the virus to others. Thrive. With enough sun and water, the roses Edgar planted soon thrived. Mild. I seem to have caught a cold, but fortunately, it's a relatively mild one. Fatal. In spite of the doctor's best efforts, the patient's injuries proved to be fatal. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger. See you next time.